is survivable. And it truly is if you know what to do and what you're up against. And that's what we teach and show you over here on this website.
Well, it's fascinating that, again, that you're making such a generous offer. And ladies and gentlemen, if you want to call Shane, too, because, Shane, the deal is that there are a lot of people that will scream at me for not giving out your number. May I give it out?
No, that'd be fine, but don't start calling until after the show.
Right. It's 830-672-8734. 830-672-8734. And mention the show, my show, Steve Quayle Show, and then whatever you buy, you can get that fabulous additional buying power that Shane is making available just for the listeners of this radio show. And this is only good for what, next week only, right?
Well, it probably won't last a full week. I mean, we can do it for just so long.
Right.
But you know, people should go ahead and take a look at it in the next couple of days and make a decision, and we'll be there long enough for that. But I wouldn't count on it being there this coming Friday.
Now, listen, here's a neat email I want to read to you. It's from one of my listeners and one of my supporters. It's from Nate. He says this: Hi, Steve and Shane. He said, I was very young when there was gasoline rationing in the mid-1970s. However, it is something that you don't forget. I recall having to get in line for limited fuel at 6 a.m. Also in the late 70s, I remember gasoline rationing based on the last digit on your license tag. Unfortunately, most Americans are accustomed to having whatever they want when they want it. Also, I can see the growing potential for rioting and perhaps a dusk-to-dawn curfew as things become very desperate. So Nate gets it.
He's very sharp right there. I have to remind people that when we look at past events and how people reacted, we can't assume that's the way it's going to go down the next time, because there's very few people. Well, let me put it this way: the majority of people today are not made of the stuff that our grandparents were, and they just don't have the self-reliant, do-it-yourself, I'm responsible for myself attitude. I mean, nowadays we have a blackout in a major city, we have a riot. And when I was a kid in the late 60s, we had like 7 states in the Northeast went black for a couple of days. You know what the big deal was? 9 months later, the maternity wards were full. I mean, that was the big deal. Not anymore. And people today, I mean, they've been on the government, TEAT for so long. I mean, we've seen so many examples of it as far as, where's milk come from, et cetera, et cetera. People just don't have a clue. And people are going to react very, very differently. This country, this population, I mean, they haven't been pushed where they were genuinely hungry and thirsty. And I'm afraid that we're not going to react as well as we've seen in the past.
Shane, let me interrupt just a minute. Steve, I'm getting 2 emails from people saying they have a wide-open feedback loop or something on Stream C, and that everything is coming in garbled. So if you can check on that, please, I'd appreciate it. Well, Shane, we're going to take our first break and only break, and we'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, my very special guest, Shane Connor of KI for You. You're listening to the Q-Files, and we shall return. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Q-Files. With me is Shane Connor at KI for You. Shane, I've got an email asking what is going on with the immigration policy. You live in Texas. Obviously, it's a very real problem throughout the country, not only on our Mexican border, but on our Canadian border. What are your thoughts? Because, again, we're going to a national ID situation in America, and today, or in the last 2 days, it's been announced by the Bush administration that the visitors are visiting employees from the South will not be required to be fingerprinted or documented. What's your take on that? Does this not forebode some very dangerous events in this country?
Well, it's ludicrous, and I find it fascinating too that I can tie it into some personal knowledge that I have of what's been going on down there in Venezuela. What Chavez has done down there with his documentation, passport office down there is they have had literally thousands of Middle Easterners come in there. They've given them bogus documents, and we've had them. They've already been picked up here. These are people with a Venezuelan passport proclaiming them as a Venezuelan, born and raised, and they can't speak a lick of Spanish, and they're up here. And I just got this yesterday from one of my contacts down there. This is number 6 on his list of 80 sent me. Several high-ranking Saddam Hussein fugitives are hiding in Venezuela. They have been given false identities by DIEX, D-I-E-X, Dirección de Identificación and Extranjería. I did that wrong. But anyways, that's the passport office for Venezuela. Their new second-in-command, Tariq al-Ayasami, is Iraqi and related to top Ba'ath Party leaders. I mean, this is crazy. The quest to permanently legalize their status as Venezuelan citizens and thus immune to extradition gave rise to a new 6-month program inaugurated February 2nd, 2004, under which illegal aliens can opt for fast-track citizenship by just presenting 3 photos. No police report or any other background info required. That's what Chavez did down there, to go ahead and protect these people, and he's given them false IDs, and we're having them show up here.
Well, also...
I mean, they don't have to cross the Rio Grande. They can fly in.
Right, and also the deal is, ladies and gentlemen, I make this statement, I know of nobody in the country or out of the country that has more ties to what's really going on in Venezuela than Shane. And the deal is that the reason he's kind of laughing is it's absolute insanity. The war on terror, have you noticed, Shane, too, that now school children will be have to put their thumbprint on a bus reader to get on and off the bus? I mean, yeah. I mean, does this ever just make you crazy? It makes me crazy.
No, it's ludicrous. And you know, when you look at our dependence on oil from Venezuela, and I mean, it's a huge dependence if it's purposely shut off or through the civil war that's commencing there right now as we speak. If the Chavez forces start losing, they're spoilers. They're going to go ahead and wreck it to where it's going to be a long time putting the thing back up. And I find it amazing. Their Minister of Mines and Energy down there is the brother of Carlos the Jackal, the Venezuelan that's in prison in France. Carlos the Jackal. His brother is Chavez's Minister of Mines and Energy. This is the guy that oversees their oil.
And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, what Shane is saying, again, I don't know what I can liken it to, but it's like the equivalent of a terrorist particle beam weaponry. When Carlos the Jackal, he was hooked in with every single major intelligence agency of the world. I'm talking about the renegade ones. And what is cynical about this is the very fact that there is a plan that has been hatched by Fidel Castro and Chavez in Venezuela, Caracas. And Shane, you and I broke the news through your sources, through some Middle East intercepts that I was made aware of a bioweapons lab. In other words, everything that was in Cuba has been reproduced and set up in Venezuela. And, you know, again...
With their technicians, too.
With their technicians. And what was it, 6,000 members of Castro's elite guards showed up in Venezuela with all their weapons in...
heavy black bags, and they were ushered around the normal receiving center there and put on buses and headed up to Caracas and to military bases. I mean, Chavez doesn't trust his own Venezuelan soldiers, and most every Venezuelan unit now has a Cuban amongst them. And the Venezuelans are very reluctant, the soldiers very reluctant, of course, to shoot upon their own people, but these Cubans will go ahead and make up for it. And it's going to be an absolute mess down there. And I've got a couple other tidbits just to let you know who Chavez is. Robert Mugabe of Zimbabwe. This is the 80-year-old communist dictator. He was there last week. He signed a cooperation pact with Chavez. Mugabe is, he's shunned internationally.
He's one of the most brutal, wicked, murderous bastards in the universe.
You know what Chavez calls him?
Brother?
His brother.
Yep.
Absolutely. Same thing with Saddam Hussein. Chavez was the first head of state to go visit Saddam Hussein after the first Iraq War. If you got a minute, I'll run down a few other.
Oh, we got a minute. This is, ladies and gentlemen, let me just set this up for you. This is so incredible. Shane and I are both receiving information that guess who is going into Venezuela? We have to go into Venezuela to protect our interests, and they already are expecting that, and the deal is they're preparing for it biologically. So, Shane, this is, I don't think there's any more important issue than talking about Venezuela tonight. I don't know of one.
Well, and the thing is, it's just a couple hours away, and let me start off first by re-emphasizing the Venezuelan people. They do polls in Latin America as they do around the world of people and their attitudes towards America, towards President Bush, towards our foreign policy, towards our war on terror. There's no country in South America that ranks higher amongst the population than the Venezuelan people in support of Bush. They love Americans. They love the American lifestyle. They've got one of the highest lifestyles there. A lot of their kids go to school up here, and this is why the Venezuelan people are so appalled at Chavez, and why his acceptance right now is well under 10%. But here's what Chavez has been doing that has had the people wanting to get rid of him, and it's why we're going to have a civil war down there. For instance, he gave $1 million to the Taliban after 9/11. And see, I met and stayed with the major in charge of this Chavez project down there when I was down there 14 months ago, and he had left Chavez a month before. And this Major Diaz, was Chavez's personal pilot on his Air Force One, which is, what was that plane? Aeroflot?
Aeroflot.
Yeah. And in fact, I rode down to the airport with him, and he showed me the plane and everything. Anyways, his life was being threatened. We were able to help him get out of the country, and when he got to Miami, I talked to the FBI and hooked him up for 9 hours of debriefing. But he was intimately involved with following Chavez's orders to go ahead and do this, and before it was culminated, he went ahead and took off, and it was followed through with other people that have now lost their lives in a helicopter accident. Anyways, Chavez, he also arms, support, and he trades cocaine with the Colombian guerrillas that our troops are fighting over there. And he smuggles coke up here on his oil tankers. In fact, the biggest ever drug haul in Corpus Christi, Texas history was last year on one of his state-owned oil tankers. He's also bought batteries of Katushka rockets and brought in the technicians from Libya to go ahead and teach his people how to operate them. Also, and this is what Steve was talking about earlier, those late-night, last-minute fly-ins via his C-130s, when the story broke in the New York Times about Castro having a bioweapons lab, it was about 3 days later that it turned up over in Venezuela with the technicians. And we've actually got the locations of this, and we've given it to the proper authorities, and they can go ahead and target it and do what needs to be done. We've also got, and this has not been totally verified, but right before the war started with Saddam, we had Venezuelan C-130s coming into Venezuela with crates of unknown content from Iraq. So, I mean, we can only guess what was in there. And remember, Chavez went to Saddam Hussein after the first war over there and pronounced him his brother, and he was the first head of state to even go into the country. Let me get you one other thing here.
Well, Shane, let me ask you this. Are you, from the people you know and stuff, they expect fully, do they not, that the United States will have to send men down there to guarantee our flow of oil, and knowing that Chavez is ready to sabotage his own oil refining facilities as well as his, drilling facilities?
Well, they have a constitutionally mandated referendum to go ahead and legally get rid of him, and it's been so overwhelmingly popular with his, popularity under 10% now that he's fighting it. I mean, he's not gonna play fair. I mean, this is why all his top generals left him to begin with, and I don't know what we're going to see, but you've got to remember, if we've got bioweapons labs down there and we got him shipping coke up here, I mean, it's a real easy no-brainer to go ahead and flavor some Coke with something up here and do us an awful lot of harm from afar, and we'd be a long time figuring out who's responsible for it. I mean, it's a nightmare easy scenario to be able to accomplish that, you know, putting up the noses of a whole bunch of people all over the country and then letting them spread it around to everybody else. And here's the other thing that's way off the radar screen that nobody understands. But see, he's also invited the Chinese in there, and he goes over and visits China, proclaims himself a Maoist. I mean, this guy's never met a regime he didn't like. He did the same thing with the North Koreans. But he invited the Chinese in to where now today the Chinese have put more investments into Venezuelan resources than all the other Latin American and Central American and Mexico combined. So, I mean, all the stuff you hear about what China's doing in Panama Canal and through the Caribbean, it's all eclipsed by what they've been doing down there in Venezuela. There's a very close relationship there, you know, that I'm very concerned with. And he's got the same praise and support and some trading going on with the North Korean regime. I mean, it's ludicrous. And what he's doing with the oil money, he's able to go ahead and fund all these different anti-democracy government insurgents throughout all the other countries there in South America. I mean, he's got some grandiose ideas here, and he's able to do, because of his oil money, he's able to do what Castro could only dream of being able to do. In fact, Castro might not even be here today except for the last 5 years of Chavez feeding him oil and money to go ahead and keep his regime up and running. I mean, it's a symbiotic relationship there, and we get rid of Chavez, we may see Castro go very soon. I mean, their fate is tied that closely. So don't you know that's going to be a death to the fight, a fight to the death ending if Castro fully realizes that. I mean, they're going to unleash everything they've got.
Well, I think, too, the fact that Al-Qaeda and Islamic Jihad, Hamas, Hezbollah, every single terrorist organization in the world, ladies and gentlemen, has a presence in Venezuela, courtesy of Chavez. And, Shane, you know, you and I spoke, I don't know how many months ago, maybe 5 or 6 months ago, about even a plan that had been turned up that they were going to figure out how to, instead of sending not just cocaine, because of the white powder, they were figuring how to, what would you say, piggyback their cocaine shipments with anthrax, and also to put a oil protective coat, or excuse me, a protective coat around smallpox, and basically put smallpox in a lot of their oil shipments. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is what, look, this isn't Shane and I hallucinating on Friday because we got nothing else to do. This is from Chavez's top generals. And Shane, you know, this is what most people don't understand. With the Chinese in Panama, at the the container port in the Bahamas, their presence in Venezuela, in Canada, we're encircled. So when they say China makes a threat that, look, we're going to go for Taiwan, and if you don't like it, we'll nuke L.A., I mean, this is something that absolutely is the most horrendous military blunder of modern history, and still the band plays on.
No, it's true, and it's so close, and I find it so heartbreaking because the people down there, you're 98% Christian, and I never felt more comfortable in my 4 trips down there amongst the people, and they are absolutely appalled at what Chavez is doing to their country in this Cubanization of it, and it's just it's such a shame. Here's the thing: Venezuela has the potential in this hemisphere to be our absolutely best ally, the best ally out of any of the countries in Central or South America, including Mexico, and they also at the same time have the potential to be our worst foe with Chavez in place. And it's such a shame. And, you know, Chavez was knocked out for about 72 hours in a coup 2 years ago, and he got back in. And in those 72 hours when he went out, the people didn't know what was going to replace him. But their stock market and the value of their bolivar, their dollar down there, it went through the roof. Incredible spike up. for the people just to be unleashed. I mean, the country is in a depression. It just, more businesses keep leaving, more people with money, they keep leaving. And we could have absolutely tremendous ally down there, with the Venezuelan people, and that's what they want too.
And,
so it's going to be, this civil war is going to be it's a very lopsided thing. That people overwhelmingly are against them, but we've got Castro's people in there, and they're going to fight dirty.
What I was going to say, and forgive me for trying to talk over you, I was only trying to amplify what you've said. We've got an issue, Shane, that is so horrific and so perilous, so provocative in the ramifications, yet the mainstream press totally controlled. And we've got, again, with everybody who hates our guts in the world, it would be nice to have a friend, but I was told that it was the U.S. State Department that blew away, when I say blew away, was responsible for the failure of the coup against Chavez. It's almost like wherever the U.S. State Department steps in, bad guys win. And that's kind of a anomaly that history will probably shake its head at, and then people will shake their fist at in disgust.
Well,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, without going into it over the air, I mean, I've told you about our conversations with the embassy people down there. On behalf of the military and the restrictions that, I mean, it's absolutely ludicrous, the lack of U.S. government support. See, the thing is, we don't have to have our troops go down there. If the president would go ahead and use the bully pulpit, condemning, exposing, showing to the world what Chavez is up to down there, the same way he did with Iraq. I mean, there's absolutely tons of proof of all these things that we're talking about. Chavez would be history in a heartbeat, because there's nobody in the world that can deal openly with the terrorist that he truly is, and what he's got in mind. And if this administration fails to do that, then we're going to have to be involved in a military thing, and we're going to gain more enemies when we do that too. And we're going to have a tremendous loss of life. And I think when they see that coming, everything that they've been working on, hey, if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. So they're going to go ahead and unleash on us, and it's going to be a mess. And this brings us back around to the food. I mean, when you talk about mad cow and you talk about the chicken diseases and all these other things, anything biological that we get into up here, regardless of where it comes from, the only thing that you can do for your family to survive is to self-quarantine yourself. That means you don't go out to the store. You're going to have to stay in, hunker down until the die-off is completed. It may be a month, it may be 6 months. And this is where, long-term reserve foods and clean water supply and all these other things are going to be absolutely essential.
And let me add this, ladies and gentlemen. One of the things that I'm convinced of now, watching the seismic activity in different places of the country, of the world, we've got Montserrat, Soufriere Hills, the volcano in the Caribbean going off. We've got situations with ice breaking up in both the Arctic and the Antarctic. We've got weird anomalies in the sun, moon, and stars, literally. And, the issue that's going to be amazing to me is that, Shane, Esau sold his birthright for something to eat when he got hungry. And again, the thing that I'm telling people is that the wise man sees evil coming and prepares himself accordingly. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, I want to share this with you. Never in the history of talk radio has anybody come up with a deal that's this outstanding. For every $100 you spend with Shane's company at KI for You, starting whether you want MREs, any of his voluminous materials, his radiation monitors, meters, nuke alerts, the DVD system of becoming informed on all these issues. For every $100 you make $25. And Shane, that's just a generous offer. So I want you to take this phone number down. You call him after the show, 830-672-8734. I'm always told I go too fast. 830-672-8734. Tell him you want the Steve Quayle special. Then I want you to go to the internet after the show. Go to KI4U.com. KI, the number 4, the letter U.com. and click on the radiation symbol in the box where it says potassium iodide. That's on the far right-hand side. That'll take you to the specials page, and then you can go and see. And Shane, let me share this. I believe that MREs are probably the only safe food that you'll be able to travel with, because people are going to have time to pull over the side of the road if they've got gas, start a fire, and start boiling beans. It isn't going to happen.
No, that's true, and they're pre-cooked. I mean, you could eat them cold, or you could, stick them in your back pocket and let them warm up, or put them on the dash of the car, or boiling water, or whatever you want to do. And I have them for lunch here, probably twice a week, and they're that good. I like them. And we have a sampler pack you'll see over there too, where you can get 4 of each of the 6 remaining flavors, and before you buy a case of 72. And go ahead and check them out, try them out. And if you're spending $100 with us, that $50 sampler pack is only $25 and no shipping. So, those are some of the things you'll discover when you get over there. And that's why I tell the people that aren't on the Internet, make an exception. Have a friend help you get over to ki4u.com.
Well, Shane, thank you so much for coming on today. And again, I just am excited to be able to have you as a source of provision for so many of the people that listen to my show. God bless you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.